Okay, thank you all for coming. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you. I am Michael Shea, and I am running for school board. I've been working as an economist for over 30 years, and I started my economist career at a time in the 1980s, at a time when the professional reputation of economists was really in decline. There was these graphs about economist jobs going down. But I struggled through, I worked. And this year I'm a first-time candidate at a time when the professional reputation of politicians has been in a steep decline, because this is the year of Donald Trump, which actually has become very helpful, because whenever I'm not sure what to do, I always think, well, what would Donald Trump do? And then I do the opposite. It's a very useful guide. So Trump always insults his rivals as much as he can. And I do make a point to try to compliment and show my respect for the other three people who are running for school board. And now I know everyone tells you this, you're not supposed to say the name of your rivals, right? That's one of the unwritten rules of politics. When I got advice from people that I was going to run, they would almost tell me in sort of hushed tones, well, and you never say the name of the people you're running against. And I thought, I didn't realize I was running against he who shall not be named. It would change everything. I also think it's because sometimes they think if you just don't say someone's name, they'll go away. But more seriously, I don't like that kind of an approach, because I've worked in a lot of situations. I've been at work and I've been other things where I felt kind of invisible and ignored, and I don't like that feeling. So I'm not going to give that to someone else. So I make a point to compliment my rivals. I think Nancy Van Doren is running the school board. She's done a lot of great things, and she's been very diligent. I know that. We worked on the BAC, the Budget Advisory Council, together. She's very diligent about wanting to know everything about an issue before she has to vote, and I respect that. Tanya Tonte was part of a group last spring, the Superintendent's Working Group. They did a great job of coming up with new ideas, new directions for schools. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, that report has been ignored. You can go to the APS website. I would encourage you to read it. And Chaz Krismans, I think, has a great background. I liked a lot of things that he said. His background as a teacher would be very, very effective. I'm glad he brings that to debate. So I respect them all. I am asking for your vote, though, in the school board caucus. And when I decided I was going to run, it was important for me to come up with 3 or so main principles that I wanted to advocate for. I wanted these to be things that I would advocate whether I was running or not. So the first thing I came up with was the idea of open data. This is the idea that the information that is in the schools should be more widely available, should be shared more. Other school districts like Boston and Philadelphia have done this. Basically, it empowers the community to understand what's going on in the schools. It gives more confidence in the community that the money is being used wisely, and that programs are being evaluated so we know they're effective. I like Arlington to be a school system that tries new things and try to achieve things. I want us to be sure we're evaluating and the community sees that data so that we can have confidence in it. I was just talking to someone in Barcroft neighborhood today who was recalling a time when parents were so frustrated in getting information about their schools, they were filing Freedom of Information Act requests to APS. We should avoid that with open data. So my second thing was I was promoting problem-based learning in the New Arlington Tech program. Now, problem-based learning is a new approach to teaching. It's used a lot of different places. We use it at the Career Center, and the Arlington Tech program will be a chance for students to go there full-time and benefit from that. The idea is that you learn the traditional academic curriculum in the context of solving problems, real-life problems. In Alexandria right now, for example, there are students studying geometry by actually building a boat. So they get to actually ride in the boat. So they've got to know they know their geometry or that boat is not going to float. They have a really good incentive. Now, we can't do that in every class. We don't need that many boats. But I want to take that approach and promote that within Arlington Public Schools. And the third thing I wanted to do and focus on, I call it new designs, but it's really getting us to think in new ways about where we're putting our schools. We've been building a lot. We'll continue to build a lot. We need the seats. I recognize that. But I want us to think about Roslyn and Crystal City, places in the county where we have space, where we can use former office space to create new schools, new school programs. We can do that less expensively. We can do that faster. In Fairfax County, they used former office space to create an elementary school. They've done that very successfully. We should be able to do that in Arlington. I think of it as, it's as if the county had a street, and on one side of the street, there were all these signs that said, lost dog, lost dog, lost dog. And the other side of the street, there were signs that said, found dog, found dog, found dog. And nobody ever crossed the street and realized where we had the space where we could build our schools that we need. to build. So I really advocate for that. So I got those 3 ideas together. And if you ask me why I was running for school board, it was pretty easy. Open data, new designs for the schools, problem-based learning in Arlington Tech, simple speech, direct. Then I started door knocking. And at this point, I've knocked down thousands of doors all over the county. And I've heard a lot of different things. I've talked to not just Democrats. I don't just go to the doors of Democrats that are likely to vote in the school board caucus. I've been to everybody's door in some neighborhoods. And it's been real rough lately because of all the rain. And I usually wear sort of a jacket, and you've got your campaign lit in one hand, and you're kind of approaching someone sort of just trying to stay dry. And that doesn't look all that great. In fact, I would definitely do that in Florida with some of their gun laws. But I've gotten through it, and I had a lot of great conversations. And what I've learned is that the 3 issues I wanted to hit, and I'll continue to hit hard on, are only part of the story of what we need. I've talked to a lot of parents and a lot of people with experience in the school system, either as teachers or administrators, who see the need for so many other things, that I need to broaden that message. For example, problem-based learning is not the only need we have on the instructional side for APS. I've talked to parents in Bluemont and other neighborhoods who are parents of special needs students who feel very frustrated that their child is not being put into an inclusionary mainstream environment. It's against their wishes. And they feel frustrated that their only recourse sometimes is legal action, which they're reluctant to take. So we need to do a better job of having an inclusionary environment. We've had years of advocacy on this issue from people, great advocacy. I'm not pretending to have been one of them. I thank those who advocated. But if we could change our years of advocacy into months of action, we can make progress on this and achieve a more inclusive environment for our students. They deserve it. I've also heard from parents. I was in Rock Spring yesterday, and I was talking to a parent whose child has dyslexia. And the status right now is that we have methods, effective methods, to help students with that. We've gotten the teachers the training, and it works pretty well in some of our elementary schools. But when they get to the middle school, we don't have any, the teachers have been trained. We don't have the time on the schedule to help them get that particular type of instruction. So we need to find a way to show our support for all our students by changing schedules and making that happen. And not just on instruction, I've also learned on my ideas about new designs that in the county we continue to have a north-south divide. We continue to have cases where the South and the schools in the South Arlington are feeling like they're not getting as good quality resources and facilities. So we need to have a discussion about that. And what I propose is that in the context of the new strategic plan, just to give you a little background, APS has a strategic plan. It was adopted in 2011. We'll be adopting a new one about a year from now that'll talk about what we want to do for the 6 years after that. So for the next year, we need to have a really good conversation on this issue of north-south divide, shared resources, and make a commitment, even make a strategic goal that we're going to consistently provide high-quality resources. Because I love Discovery Elementary School. They did a great job. I love the work they're doing in a lot of other schools. But we have to avoid having, at the same time, schools like Randolph continue to get deteriorated and have bad quality for the students and the teachers there. And finally on data, I've met teachers at their doorstep, and I'll say, well, I'm for open data. And the response I'll get is, I'm so sick of data. Because to them, this push for data is a push for testing. It's a push for teaching to the test. It's a push for preparing for the test. It's a push for shrinking the actual instructional time that they have in the classroom. I'm not saying we need more testing. I'm not saying we have to avoid having our push for data be that way. My main point in open data is what data we have, let's make it available. So we can talk about it, so we can analyze it, so we can learn from it. But we do need very desperately to come up with a new way to reduce the amount of testing time we have at all our levels and increase the instructional time. And we have data that reflects that. We should show that data. And this is also a good time to do that because in Virginia right now, there's a working group at the House of Delegates and in the Senate on SOLs. They're trying to cut back on the number of SOLs. I think they're going to make some progress on that. There's also a law passed this year which is going to change high school graduation requirements. I think that will be reflected in less testing and more instruction time. So Arlington has an opportunity to be a thought leader in this area, in Virginia. We have an opening. We're not going to be struck down, I think, by restrictions from Richmond. I think we should be talking about that and building on that and make a clear commitment, again, in the context of the strategic plan. a clear commitment that we're going to increase our instructional time and decrease the testing time. I've been on advisory committees for the arts, including tech, and what happens is those strategic goals matter, because as you're preparing your report for the school board, and the school board is always very good about reading the reports and questioning and learning from that. But as you prepare those reports, everyone is expected to align it with a strategic goal. Well, you may be sitting on a committee and have a great idea for reducing testing time, but that's not a strategic goal. You're not aligned to that. So that kind of diminishes the ability to be effective at that. So let's make that part of our strategic plan, our discussion of the strategic plan, and make that commitment. Now, we already have 5 strategic goals. And I realize some people are going to be telling me, you don't have too many strategic goals. You know, that starts to lose the point. But we already expect our high school students, like Matthew here, to juggle 7 demanding classes throughout a school year. I think as a community, we can have more than 5 strategic goals and make it work. So now when people ask what I'm for the school board, I'm kind of tempted to say, rather than the 3 simple ideas I had, I feel like I have to say, well, it's complicated. It's a complicated school system. I don't want to sound like I'm for everything, but there are a lot of good things that we need to be an advocate for, and I think we should move forward on reducing testing time, making sure our facilities are consistent, promoting problem-based learning, more importantly, promoting styles of teaching that match up with learning styles. So we need to continue to focus to reduce the achievement gap and boost the achievement gap for all our students. Let's do it in ways that speak to those students. Let's find ways that speak to those students. That brings me to the idea of a 4th comprehensive high school. Because like everyone else in the community, I've seen the projections. I know we need the seats for more high school students. Coming up fast, 5, 6 years from now, is a real crunch period. But I'm not in favor of building a 4th comprehensive high school for at least a couple of reasons. 1, I don't think we have the time, the land, or the money. And 2, as I just mentioned, Virginia's changing, the process of changing its high school graduation requirements. I would hate to commit to a model of a school like Yorktown, Wakefield, and Washington Lee, which are great schools. I hate to commit to that model, build it in 5 years from now, and realize we're in a new high school graduation environment. So let's stay flexible. Let's build Arlington Tech up. We can get seats that way. We get seats that way with HB Woodlawn now, which is a great program for the students that it serves. Let's build other programs like that to serve other students. That could mean an arts and music academy. We could put that in a place like Crystal City, or with the Artisphere in Roslyn. We could create programs that would provide pre-professional training for students, areas they want to focus in. We can also do this by rethinking senior year, having block scheduling senior year so that students can be off their campus for at least half the week. That could be in internships, that could be work experience, that could be studying at a center for excellence like art and music that I was just talking about, that we can create. It could be partnering with George Mason University and a public policy school. So if we get creative, I think we can get to the seats. Now, the numbers are kind of daunting, and I know people, I've met with different types of groups, I've met with different people on the doorstep, and you can always tell the people that want to ask the tough questions because they keep asking the same question. When I talk about my plans to get to the seats, they go, well, that only adds up to 1,200. Where are you going to get to 1,200? That only adds up to 600. Right. I know there's that push. It's going to be tough, but I think we can do it. I often wear, I'm basically an optimistic person. I often wear this tie to kind of reflect that. This is the tie with the phases of the moon. And the thing about the phases of the moon is, if you think about it, we always talk about a full moon, we talk about a half moon. We don't talk about a half-empty moon. In fact, when there's no moon, we don't talk about an empty moon, we talk about a new moon. So people I think, are intrinsically optimistic. I want to harness that in our discussion about the schools. I think we can meet the seats. I think we can do it in a way that's cheaper, faster, and more effective for our students if we don't build a 4th comprehensive high school. So the idea about open data, new styles of teaching like problem-based learning, and rethinking how we're building our facilities all kind of work toward that. So basically, I want us to have a school system that cares enough to provide help for all students, including those with dyslexia and everyone else, and matches the teaching style. Let's have a school system that cares enough to provide for all students. Is everybody with me on that? Yes. All right. I want to have a school system that shares its data, that shares enough, that the information flow is free and easy, and we all get empowered, and we all learn from that. Is everybody with me on that? Yeah. Thank you. And I want to have a school system that dares enough to think in new ways about what a school looks like, new ways that a building is in, because it's not important what a school looks like from the outside, it's important what it feels like from the inside. So let's be daring in our approach to new construction. Is everyone with me on that? All right, thank you. So now we come to the last thing I want to say, which is there is a vote this week. I've been going around the county, all over the county, and I constantly hear from people, oh, that's in June. Oh yeah, I'll vote for you, but that's in June. I'll say, no, that's the county board. This is school board. Just because how we are in Arlington, we have to do it differently. So the county board is going to be in June, but the school board vote is coming up on Thursday, the 19th. You can vote at True. Or Saturday, 21st, you can vote at Washington Lee. So you don't go to your usual voting place. You go to one of these two places and vote. And I do hope to earn your vote. Now, when I got into this race, I have not gotten endorsed by any of the elected officials. I have not raised a lot of money. I thank everyone who's given me money, but that's one reason why you're not seeing signs out in the median. I'd like to be able to say that, oh, we don't want to litter the medians with signs, that's why you're not seeing our signs. The reality is that we don't have the money. So I feel like in some ways, by some kind of measure, this is kind of a long shot candidacy. I'm still optimistic, as I said. But I hope everyone here and everyone who watched it later on video will join me and take this long shot candidacy and make it work. Sometimes, if you try to push forth ideas, maybe you're going against sort of the party establishment, but you can succeed. Sometimes it only happens once in a blue moon. It's a rare event, but I'm confident based on the energy I feel when I go door knocking and talk to people. I feel that energy. I want to take that energy and hopefully win the school board caucus. And I would just point out one more thing. This coming Saturday, if you know your lunar calendar, is actually a blue moon. So it may not happen very often, but I hope you will join with me and win one of the endorsements from the Democratic Party. Thank you all for coming, and I'll be glad to take any questions.